Okay, welcome to, let me make sure I'm recording this. Yes, I am. Perfect. I wanted to do a tutorial using ArcGIS so you could see its utility and certainly understand how the program works. ArcGIS is a set of tools for spatial analysis and is used in a bunch of different fields. Every time McDonald's wants to build a new McDonald's, they refer to geographic data and see, for instance, what roads are getting the most traffic or what neighborhoods would have the most appeal for a McDonald's. Certainly in environmental science, you see a lot of maps. If we're doing something like sea level rise, right? We want to understand what neighborhoods are vulnerable. If we're tracking the spread of a species or a disease or something like that, we're certainly relying on geographic data. Here is the so-called splash screen, right? Right when you log in, you should see Loomis Chafee GIS. How legit. And if you go to your content, this is where all of your projects that you work on, obviously, these are mine. So yours will be empty until you get working. But this is all of your content. Again, I press that content button on the top screen. Now, to get started, I want to focus on the first part of your assignment. Let me get it up, which is talking about introducing your biomes and the abiotic properties, right? In which you have to have at least 3 map layers that represent some abiotic characteristics of your biome. And of course, you know them as things affecting the atmosphere, right? So temperature might be one. Hydrosphere precipitation might be one, also hydrosphere, sort of rivers and streams. Atmosphere might also include storms, right? You're going to want to pick one that really sort of represents an important force in shaping your biome, right? So temperature, an obvious one for desert, precipitation, an obvious one for desert. I wouldn't go ahead and put like a stream layer because there's probably not many streams in your desert environment. And then, of course, also the lithosphere. So your elevations, soil types, etc., might be important. And you might not know everything about them, but if you do your due diligence, you should be able to sort of figure some of these out and engage with the data in a meaningful way that speaks to your understanding of your biome. So let's head back to the ArcGIS platform. Remember, I've started out in, let me go back. I start out with my main page in content, and now I'm going to go to map. Cool. And it starts with a splash screen. I'm sorry. It starts with this base map, which I think is provided through Garmin. If I click the base map button, I can change it to my heart's desire. And I'm actually going to choose, because I'm going to work in the US, it's called the NAPE, the National Agriculture and Imagery Program, which has a really fine resolution, but only for the United States. So if you're picking a biome that's not in the United States, I would go with, for instance, imagery, because that is real imagery, and it's still of high quality. In fact, if I click on this, let's get like a good view or a good comparison just to show you. Let's see. Okay, so you can see a little bit more finer scale. I don't want to do that again for my own sake. Yeah, see, like it's a little bit fuzzier, and then you put this in. Where are we going? Oh, right. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Okay. Now this has to do with the pixel size, just as it does in a regular picture. In the imagery one, the pixels, I think, are about like 10 meters by 10 meters, right? Whereas in NAPE, I think it's like 3 meters. So it's a very fine scale resolution. And look how awesome. I mean, maps are just so cool, in part because you can see sort of these changes in the landscape here following the Hiawassee River. Really neat. Okay. If you zoom out, you lose a little bit, and you can actually see the extents of the photographs here. So these photographs are usually taken via drone, and so the drone obviously didn't need to go out into the water or to the Chesapeake Bay in this case. But it has mostly full coverage over the entire United States, and that's so that the USDA, which is the US Department of Agriculture, can sort of monitor important trends at a very fine scale. So I am going to start my project. The first thing I have a base map. Cool, this is just the base. If you've ever worked with Photoshop, you understand the concept of layers. If you haven't, it's not tough. Essentially, all we're doing is layering information on top of each other. So we're going to start with this base layer with nape, okay? And actually, you know what? I'm even making a change to go back to the imagery because I'm not going to use a fine scale, and I don't like that like weird sort of like translucent thing. So I'm going back to imagery because we're going to be looking at the biome scale, which if you remember from the scales of ecological inquiry, right? If I'm doing something at the individual scale, nape is awesome, right? But if I'm looking at an entire biome, I'm sort of looking at a much larger area here, okay? Look over here. Wow, that's incredible, right? So is this some sort of like burn when it was taken? Maybe it was a fire. I'm not sure. See some conifers there. It looks like mines, but very interesting. Okay. Anyway, we're looking at the biome scale. So first thing I want to do is add my biome. I'm going to go to my layers, and right now I don't have any layers. I just have a base map, okay? So I'm going to add one. Now, the cool thing about ArcGIS is that it has access to so much geographic data. So if I add, if I browse layers, now this one, you can see it says my content, okay? That's the default. Now, I have content. I'm a content creator on here, if you will, but there's other sources for this content. One of them is called Living Atlas. There's really two, Living Atlas and ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online is if some sort of user creates something that they think that the broader population would be interested in, and so they'll put it up there. So you'll find some like cool things, but Living Atlas is like bona fide, if you will. It's like this is representative, or this data comes from a source you can trust. Sometimes it's Esri, which is the company that makes ArcGIS. Sometimes it's NASA. Sometimes it's the USDA would have some. I'm seeing a lot of Esri right now, but you'll see as we poke around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is type in ecoregions. Okay, and I think I want ones from the Nature Conservancy is what I wanted. Let me see if I see it up here. Oops, let me try over here. It's an ArcGIS Online. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. So go to the ArcGIS Online and click on terrestrial ecosystems, and you press add. And you'll see this is called a vector data or polygon data. There now the world is broken up into polygons. And if I click on one, here you have the Great Lakes ecoregion or the prairie forest border. Okay. Or in this case, if I click right here, the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is a very special sort of region of the country for me, as I lived there for many years. So the thing is, when I'm doing this biome scale, like I don't need to know, for instance, that over here, although interesting, I'm finding all these, wow, look at the patterns of these sort of biomes, these little islands over here, the Eastern Himalayas. I don't need that information for my Blue Ridge Mountain. So what I'm going to do, now that I've added the layer, and you see I've clicked add, it's turned to remove, I can go back. I want to use some of the functions over here. Can I move myself a little bit? Okay, there we go. I want to use some of the functions over here to change this up. So what I'm going to do is, you see I have styles and filter. I'd say those are probably the two most important you're going to have for this. I'm going to go to filter. Okay, and I'm going to add an expression in which, let me click on here. You can see it says CLS code or eco code. This is a specific code to that, only that ecoregion. Right now, the default is, I don't see it says AA101, and I don't know where that is. I thought it would be in Antarctica. Is it? No, is it showing over there? Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure. But I'm just going to change it to the ecoregion for the Blue Ridge Mountain, which is NA414. Okay. And you see it shows up. Now I'm going to press save. Okay. And now only this ecoregion shows up. I'll just say one of the mistakes is that you press add expression, and then it's saying, give me one that has the eco code of NA0414 and has the eco code of AA0101. None of those ecosystems have that. So you're going to want to delete that expression and just leave it at 1 and save it right there. Okay. Now the thing is cool, but now it's we're blocking the ecoregion, right, with this transparent blue. So head over to styles and you'll see a bunch of style options. One of them is the single symbol, which is going to work, but in this case, I want to make the fill transparency 100. I want to add a new outline that I'm going to want a color that's not very prevalent in nature. So let's go with this like bright purple. Orchid almost. Let's make it a little lighter. Okay, and I'm even going to make it a little bit. Let's do 2.5. Okay, and I'm going to press done, and now I have my ecoregion on the map. Cool, huh? All right. If I want to know more about this layer, I can go to show properties and information. And there's this other link it'll say to the source layer. It'll load up. It'll give you a brief description here about ecoregions and where this data come from and who we should credit. In this case, the Nature Conservancy. Okay, someone named Francesco Tontini. Okay, let's go back to the map. And I also want to, in this case, right click and go to show table. Oops. Now, all data, especially polygons, have a data table that's sort of that's what I'm looking for here. It's linked to its respective polygon. In this case, we only have one because we filtered it, and you can see some of this information. This is the like broader sort of biome it's found in, temperate broadleaf and mixed forests. And I guess I should make the point, although hopefully we'll make it in class, we're going to look at ecoregions, which is just another way to categorize areas of the earth, and in very similar ways than biomes, but econes are slightly smaller than biomes, which I think should give you guys a little bit more specificity and easier to work with. Okay. So the source, now I'm wondering, can I add from here? Oh, I can put in the shape area. That might be a good thing to note, right? So this is in hectares. Does it say? I'm gonna have to look at the excuse me, the units for that, but I will get to that. Okay, so that's the table. You don't necessarily need to use it, but I wanted to identify it there. So again, here's our ecoregion. And now we want to add some of the abiotic properties of the biome that make it what it is. Now, anyone who's ever been to this region knows, of course, we're talking about the Blue Ridge Mountains. So elevation is a sort of key spatial feature here. Now, the Blue Ridge Mountains are actually the oldest mountains. This might be something I would put in my biome presentation. We'll get to in a second. One of the oldest mountain ranges in the country, maybe the world. No, it can't be the world. But they're very small. They've been eroded over time. So they're nothing like, for instance, the Rockies. Okay. Now, if I add here, now I want to go to, let's start in ArcGIS Online again this time because I was wrong last time. And I can type in elevation. Now, be careful because there's some things called hillshade, and that's actually an angular or based on the angle. Here, I'm going to do the world elevation GMTED. Okay, I'm going to add that. Now, what I was saying, now I've added it, I can go back. What I was saying about layers before is one thing is the order that they're in. If I bring this to the top, you'll now see my border right here, and you can see some of these areas. If I want to find out, because I'm kind of forgetting what GMTED stands for, Global Multi-Resolution Terrain Elevation Data. That rolls off the tongue. How did I forget that? Okay. The layer provides 250 meter cell-shaped raster. So each of the pixels are representative of 250 meters. Okay. There's some more information there, but let's head back to the map. And one thing I want to talk about here is how this is stylized. Okay. In this form, each pixel is representing a different class of colors. And so then there's a different color for each one. That's not very useful, right? So let's switch to stretch. Okay, and you should see pretty quickly the difference, right? So now each pixel is sort of given a different value based on a gradient, okay? And if I want to change that gradient, I can keep that as default. That's a little more complicated than what we need to be. I can go to maybe a bit more of a widely used elevation gradient, okay? And so if I go back here, now you see, wow, this is cool. So all the mountains are coming out, and it's on, again, this gradient. There is one cool thing I want to talk about, and that's the dynamic range adjustment. So right now, when I zoom out, it's showing me, for instance, the top areas are going to be, or the highest areas are going to be these green areas, right? And these are sort of our mid-range ones, and here our purple is low. If I apply dynamic range adjustment, it scales this gradient based on what I'm seeing on the screen. So even though now we see this gradient over here, there's none of this like light brown and a little less green over there. But if I zoom in, oops, sorry, I zoomed out. Over here, it's going to reapply that scale. Now, the only thing I don't like about this is now my border is a little bit less visible. Let's see if I'll tinker around with one or two other scales. Don't love that. Here's a good one. Okay. So, do I love that? I think I like this. Okay, where these are the highest areas. Do I love that? Maybe if I go back. See, it's like a fun little exercise. I like this. Okay. Except again, and I'm going to do what I probably should. I'm going to be done with the elevation right now, and I'm going to be done and save it. What I'm going to do now is actually change. I'll just click back on this and change this symbol. And I didn't think orchid would be as big of a problem. Let's just change it to black, which I think will be less of a problem. I guess there's also a way to make it a pattern, which might be, yeah, this might be a nice way to ensure that it's a little more visible. Press done there. Done there. Okay, so cool. Here's my biome, and if I zoom out, again, because I have that dynamic range on, it's now scaling based on the entire United States. If I zoom in, it's going to scale to only this region. And so if I go to my legend over here, I'm going to be able to see these colors, even though before I wasn't able to. Okay, so the Blue Ridge Mountains are the highest points in the eastern United States. Okay, but again, because of the age of these mountain ranges, they are pretty small by most standards. If we go to the Himalayas, we see something completely different. And you can see some of the patterns, especially you see along these valleys and ridges. So a very cool elevation scheme, okay? So let me go back to my layers, because we have now one abiotic factor, right? We have elevation. Let me go back to ArcGIS Online, and here I want to put precipitation, okay? And that's because this is a pretty wet ecoregion. Over here. And look right there, oh, total annual precipitation. Now over here you have the National Weather Forecast precipitation forecast. This will be like for today, right? So today's the 16th. And so this was updated today. Whereas this is over the course of a year, okay? And actually, you see this says, I could look in and I think Elizabeth Barona looks trustworthy. But over here we have the global mean precipitation provided by Esri, which I think might just be a bit more trustworthy. I'm going to add this to the map. You see the same problem as before. Problem is that every number is given its own category, and we're again going to switch to stretch. And when I go to my style options, I'm going to choose something that like is very rainy. Okay, so I'm thinking about something like this. Or this, maybe it's just like lush green versus sort of browns. Are there any others that sort of give me that? Oh, this kind of does, I think. Yeah, let's do that. So my low values are going to be this like brown deserty, and my high values are going to be this very blue. And I'm again going to apply the dynamic range adjustment, okay? And if I go back and put this over here, whoops, sorry, if I put this up here, and like, let's show you this. If I click this arrow, it turns it off. You'll see that this region in the southern Blue Ridge Mountains gets a lot of water, right? If I zoom out, again, you're going to see the range change again. And so you go to the western versus eastern United States, and you see a pretty significant difference in precipitation patterns, which is cool and interesting. But of course, if I just look at the United States, I see that the southern US actually in many ways resembles a rainforest. And if you've lived in the South, you know that like April, you get those spring showers, okay? Now, if I go, I'm going to zoom in over here, and I think this does a nice job of showing that they're really within this one biome, a pretty drastic difference in rain patterns, okay? So I'm over here, I have now, if I undo this one, this is still at the top, so I'll show my elevation patterns, I have my rain patterns, okay? Trying to think of a good temperature. Let's do temperature, okay? One thing that is interesting about the Blue Ridge Mountains is it has many of the similar forests. You know what? I'm going to actually show, so the precipitation is going to be sort of my representation of the atmosphere. I'm going to actually show rivers and streams because definitely a big part of the Appalachian forests are streams that are going through these mountains in, I think, very cool ways. And in many ways, they represent the elevation. Now, what I was going to do, and if I go back to ArcGIS Online and I put like max temperature, I can really show off, for instance, some of the summer. So this is the global max temperature. Now, these are projections in that case, but this was the max temperature from 1981 to 2010. You could see in the clip art, or what's that called? Icon, whatever. You can see some of the trends that you might expect. But I want to go ahead and put streams USA. And here again, this comes from Esri, USA detailed streams, okay? And I add that over here. Now, there's this really, I'm gonna put it under here, but there's also this thing that happens where it doesn't show at certain zoom ranges. So if I just zoom out here, you see the problem. Whoops, okay. Let's maybe change that so that it does only show when I'm looking at sort of a different view. Let's try and get it for over here, okay? And you can see sort of the, on the elevation, you can see some of the, you can actually see it if you're looking a little bit closer, patterns that emerge, right? Now, this is probably like the peak height of the mountain, and so a stream coming downwards. You can see this like elevation. Here's where you see it probably the strongest, this sort of like green low elevation area, and this is like a river going through it, so you can pretty easily imagine a valley or something like that. Anyway, so now I have the hydrosphere, but the problem is it's very, very messy when I zoom out, which I'm just going to make a point that when I show this, sorry, when I show this, I'm zoomed in some way that makes sense. Okay, so I have 3 abiotic factors that I can talk about. Okay, I'm going to save this, and if your computer's glitchy or if you're super anxious, you should have saved this earlier. I'm going to save this as abiotic Blue Ridge Mountains. And this is saving the whole map. So all of the layers, the filtering I did is all saved on here. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you this other part of the platform called the Storymap. Okay. I'm going to go back to, if I click on a multitude of places, but now I'm just going to go back to content. If you're not using Arc the browser, get on it. It's so awesome. ARC the browser. Anyway, I'm going to go back to content. I'm going to go to new item. I'm going to go to application. Maybe I'm not. Let me just double check. I'm not going to do that. Where is it? Hold on. My bad. Create app. There we go. You're going to go to create app, and you're going to go to ArcGIS Storymap. And you're going to get this platform. Now, the Storymap is sort of the canvas that shows all the things that you've done in ArcGIS, okay? And you're going to do a couple more things, but I want to show you how it works, okay? First things first, I get my Storymap. I'm going to have a title now. Oh, that's not one. I'm going to make a title, and, you can make it creative. Let's go with Why So Blue, the Blue Ridge Mountains biome. Okay. Now, I'm going to add a cover image. I got a picture of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Whoops, doesn't work. Here we go. Oh, I can't do this for this part of the story. Sorry, I was looking at this. Let me go get a good picture that will actually work. You can see the Blue Ridge Mountains, so beautiful. So many waterfalls. Oh, with the sunset. But let's go with this one. I really like that sunset picture, okay? And I'm going to click on here, save image as. We know how to do this, I hope. I just want to make sure that I'm getting it the right file type. Okay, JPEG, cool. I'm going to head back to my Storymap. I'm going to browse my files again. Oh, this works. And I'm going to add it. Whoa, how cool is that? I can actually change some elements of my design if I want to, right? So I can make this and I can can I change that? I go back to design. I'm going to change it to this title. There are some themes gallery, which is kind of cool. Science report presentation. We're going to work on that later. Add some cool new things, right? You can add a navigation, which might be cool. So for instance, if I write, if I add headings, I create the navigation. So I'm going to add a heading. And I'm going to add heading 2. That's going to be called abiotic factors. Okay. What do I have to add? Oh, never mind. Guess that has to be heading 1. Okay. So I added abiotic factors. Let's check one more thing in the design. No. Okay. Whatever. Oh, I spelled factors wrong. So now I've got a picture. I've got this little description. I could write about a little bit like I lived in this ecoregion for about 10 years and loved watching sunsets and exploring the ecosystems of this area. Let's call it natural surrounding. And then, of course, keep my name right there. Okay. So now I'm going to add a map. And look what's going to show up. The map that we just worked on. How awesome is that? Okay. If I add it here, I can show all this stuff, but the problem is all they're going to be able to see, I'll show you it if I place the map right there, is the top layer. Okay. Unfortunately, that's the only way to do it. Now, is that satisfactory? No, it's not. Okay. Is it cool to note like, oh, this is how you could do it with a single map? Yes. But I'm going to show you a way to trash this. Okay. I'm going to add an immersive element. Okay. This one's called the sidecar. Okay. In which I'm going to have a docked version, because of my nickname. And here I'm going to add that map again. I'm going to put this here. And in this part, I'm going to start with the ecoregion, and I'm going to take away the streams. I'm going to take away the precipitation. And I want to talk about the elevation. So I'm going to zoom out. That sort of functionality is still in play. I'll put this here. All right. So one thing that kind of stinks is you don't have the borders of the country, and if you were doing a little bit more, you could figure that out. But that's sort of beyond the scope here. And you look, if you click, the user clicks, they can find out the elevation. So awesome. Okay. The mountains of the Blue Ridge, the Appalachian Mountains were formed by, and I'll let you learn that on your own and think about just how this would be used. And then what's going to happen is you start with number one. If you add another pane, if you will, okay, then I can add that map again. Oh, abiotic components. And this time I just want to have the streams. And I'm actually going to keep the base map, I think, in part because you can sort of see it, what's it called? Pattern I was talking about before. Oh, let me exit out here. Okay. You can see that sort of within the natural pictures. It looks like these are two pictures put next to each other taken on different days, which is something that can happen. Okay. But I want to keep the ecoregion. It's a little harder to see that here, but it looks like it's over here. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Okay. And place the map. Okay. And so now what happens is when the user sorts between here, it says, oh, this is the elevation. And I could write something about there are X number of streams in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which host incredible aquatic or biodiversity. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then I'm going to add one more map. And that's, of course, going to be add map. In this map, I'm going to my old one, and I'm going to take away the streams. I'm going to take away the elevation. I'm going to leave with the precipitation. I'm going to leave this around here. Okay. And I'm going to place the map there. Oh, there's one thing I want to do, actually. I'm sorry. If I go back to here and I go to settings, in all of them, I'm going to want to show the legend open. I think that's a good habit. So place the map there. Same thing over here. I'm going to go back. Oh, no, sorry. I'm going to edit the map. I'm going to go to this cog. I'm going to say keep the legend open. I can add an overview map, which can be kind of cool for the sake of things. Go back and do that over here too. Okay, but this is sort of the name of the game, is sort of just, and obviously you can see I'm moving pretty quickly on here. Hopefully not too quickly, though I gather I probably am. I'm going to go back again to this cog, go to legend. You can always slow this video down, right? Which is awesome. Okay, and the overview map there. So here's where you're going to write and detail your abiotic components. And let's just see what that screen looks like, okay? I'm going to preview this page. So this is the web page you're going to make, which is sick, right? And you see this abiotic factors. And you probably should put another bit of text there that's like the abiotic factors form the blah, 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 okay? And so look how this pane works now. Sorry, this immersive feature, right, that we did. The Appalachian Mountains was formed by the elevation. And I'm just scrolling. Whoa, now it zooms in and gives me the ability to sort of use this map and look at it. I mean, one thing that's interesting is look at the human populations formed against these streams, called cricks, if you will. You might read about that. Now, if I continue to scroll down, whoa, now I'm looking at precipitation, right? Okay. And one thing that is sort of annoying is that, and let's exit where's the button to exit this? Oh, if I press this. Now I'm back in the story. The story map actually auto saves, the maps themselves do not, okay? One thing that I noticed is that I didn't talk about, again, how to find what scale that precipitation is in. If I click on the layer over here and I go to properties and go to information, then I'm able to see, oh, this is millimeters per month. Wow. 5 millimeter resolution. Oh, they average the millimeters per month. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Okay, so right, millimeters per month on average from 1970 to 2000. Okay, there are tons of other. Let me go back to this map. There are tons of other data sources, some which you'll explore in the future sections, but that can be used to represent abiotic factors, fires, flooding, human population impact, right? So I think that those are some that you should consider. You might consider putting in as well. But for now, I just want to note, like, obviously we talked about the major forces that shape biomes. Temperature and precipitation were obviously one of them. Obviously, there are a few more in the spheres that you might consider. Okay, so recap, we opened up a map that we called Abiotic Components of Blue Ridge Mountains. We added features, some mostly from ArcGIS Online. You could also look at those uploaded on Living Atlas. We use the filter button in the case of the biome to only look at one specific biome. We also did things like change our styles, right? In the case of temperature, it was listed as this sort of, I think it's called color map. I guess we could go through here and you can see how that looks. But instead we focused on the stretch. I'm going to cancel so that those changes I made don't apply, okay? And then with that information, we added it to a story map with this kind of immersive function, okay? And remember, this is called sidecar. I think that's like you're this text and then the map is the sidecar over here. There are other, I can briefly show you other immersive features that you can put in. Remember, we also looked at the map, and obviously here you see how to add audio features. You could do swipe maps, might be kind of cool. Here, let's go to there. Okay, if I make this full screen, I think that's the best way to do it. I'm going to add a web map with this over here. And why don't I, if I want to compare, sorry, I'm going to cancel this for right now and exit out here. I'm going to go to abiotic components. I'm going to add one called human impact. global human footprint impact, which is like how much has this affected these specific ecoregions. I'm going to keep it at, I'll put the stretch here. No. I'm going to keep it at RGB. And if you look back, you can see sort of what this is representative of. Let me go back. Taking a long time to draw. That's what this blinking arrow means. But if I click on one, oh, here you go. You can see the major impacts in the country. Obviously, many of them centered in cities, but you see certainly the footprint of road and rail lines. Okay, I'm going to put this on top. Cool. You can see it's relatively unaffected by a lot of human impact, and that's because actually of the mountains themselves, elevation. So here's our good thing to look at. I'm going to save because I'm going to reuse this. It's a long recap, sorry. I'm going to go to, oh, not that one. No, not that one either. Why so blue? There we go. And I'm going to add the web map, abiotic components of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm going to turn these off, and I'm going to leave. This one, again, takes a long time to load. Oh, I guess it just loaded. And then I'm going to add, again on this web map, abiotic factors. And I sort of want to show why these high elevation ones are the ones that are less impacted. I'll keep this up there. And so this is a swipe map in which someone could say, oh, the reason that they're not impacted is over here. And you can think of other good uses for this. Oh, for some reason, well, this is a good thing to show, I guess. For some reason, my streams are showing up. I just have to go back in and turn those off and place my map again. But you can imagine the utility of a swipe map. If you want, another cool thing you could do is the slideshow. And what I think the slideshow is really good for, if I add my map and I put something like, I want to show something at sort of a scale level. Yeah. Okay. Right, I might show, this is global precipitation. Let me show you just the national scale. Okay, and place that there. And so I have this at the national level, and I add this map, this. Now I just want to zoom, I'm going to turn this off. I want to go into precipitation. And I want to zoom in over here. Let's say I just want to do this scale. And here I'm kind of showing how much precipitation is in this one region, right? And I place map. Now I'll have sort of a scale-based effect where I can go here and here, okay? And let me show you, just to be super thorough, well, just, yeah, preview, I want to continue. Why are the Blue Ridge Mountains blue? Oh, look at the elevation, look at the streams. There's the precipitation patterns. Here's a swipe map. So again, that might be useful for something down the road. And here's sort of this other, this one I press the button and I can sort of do this different scale-based focuses, okay? There's one more actually on here, which I think you can choose to use if you'd like. That's not like images and audio, and that's the map tour. And in the map tour, you actually put points down to focus on, okay? And so I'll try to review that in a different video because this one's getting a little bit long, to be honest. But hopefully you see the use of data, the display of data, and also the value of some of these components in telling your story map. Okay. Thank you for listening. I hope this is helpful. And I look forward to seeing what you guys create. It's going to be fun. It's going to be clunky. You'll rewatch parts of these and slow down. And that's usually very helpful. So thank you.